Mr. Franczek, thank you so much for finding time to visit us here in the studio of Invest for Sight on the sidelines of Gaidar Forum. And to start with, as a major expert in American foreign trade and US-Russian trade, how would you assess the current state of the trade relationships between our two countries?
Well, the trade relationship has been difficult for the last few years, okay, because of these arbitrary sanctions that have been imposed by the United States on Russia, okay? But we try to work within those limits. And Russia and the Eurasian Union are doing lots of initiatives to try and improve the movement of goods, particularly with the Eurasian Customs Code that came into effect last year. And what you've got going on is a number of improvements. One is electronic clearance of goods, which is now done by a majority of the goods coming into the country, okay? This is a very important feature because the goods are able to move more quickly from the US or Europe or wherever into Russia and to the business people. The point is that the faster the goods are moved, the more the government collects in customs tariffs and the more money business makes. So it's a win-win to move goods quickly into the country for trade. And there's any number of other initiatives with the single window concept, where the importer will only have to go to one agency to go to rather than, let's say, 6 to get their goods certified and have these different documents done. And again, lots of other improvements. So again, trying to move the goods quickly, because that's where everybody can make money, by making it more efficient and making it more in line with world standards. So that's one of the things that we do. We are working on very closely, and again, to lower administrative barriers.
Therefore, would you say that the legislative environment these days in Russia is improving from the point of view of a foreign trade partner?
From the foreign trade, we've seen a significant improvement, okay? You know, and again, it's the new customs code is a main feature of this, because the new customs code was based upon the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, where it made recommendations to Russia and the other countries that have adopted it. A lot of countries have adopted it, like 120 countries have adopted it, but it's all about trying to lower the administrative barriers to make the goods flow faster.
Speaking about administrative barriers, let's look at, say, energy relations between Russia and the European Union. for instance, and third energy package in particular, Russia has been complaining about being discriminated under the new European laws. Would you agree with this viewpoint?
I haven't seen, with regards to European laws, there's been issues for that for years.
Yep.
Okay, for many years, with the third initiative by the European Union, and you've got the main issue energy-wise between Russia, the European Union, and the United States is what? It's Nord Stream 2. Okay, that is being completed right now. It's almost at a completion stage. And the Europeans sort of want it, the Russians want it, and the U.S. wants to impose sanctions on those companies and countries that want to do some financing or be involved in it. So you've got a sort of a conflict there, and it's the major conflict that's going on right now between U.S., Russia, and the U.S. The EU, I mean. And the Americans look at it as a way, and they've in fact stated this in their Kotska sanctions law, that one of their goals is to support the export of liquefied natural gas to Europe. Okay? So they have a commercial interest in this.
True, and therefore, would you say that the business community in the U.S. is supportive of such policies of the government?
I would say some may be, because it has only been recently that U.S. natural gas producers were allowed to export their natural gas. In recent years, you've had the development of the shale tight oil in the U.S., and now the U.S. is sometimes the largest oil producer in the world at about 11.7 million barrels a day. It's the top three switches between Russia, Saudi Arabia, and the U.S. But the U.S. oil production is not so controlled by the government. It's the private producers that are developing the oil and creating the 11.7 million barrels a day, different than Saudi and a little bit different than Russia, because they're more government controlled. So it's a battle. So those on that side, they may be in favor of it. Although I will say, generally speaking, American companies look at sanctions policies as being counterproductive. Just as a lose-lose, they lose the Russian market. They lose it to who? To the Chinese, for example. Okay, or to the Latin Americans in food sectors. So they're losing out on this issue.
Well, sanctions come and go. In your opinion, do you think it will take a long time for economic relations between the two nations to be fully restored? To make it win-win situation?
what you've got going on right now, that's a political question.
It is.
Okay? And what you've got going on right now, as we speak, you have Donald Trump being accused of being an agent of Vladimir Putin. I mean, I watch the U.S. news and I hear this stuff, and he says, well, he's being investigated by the FBI because he fired James Comey in May of 2017. And he is doing the Russian bidding by pulling out of Syria. You know, it's you have Trump. It sort of has a realistic view of Russia, where you look at you need to deal with Russia. You need to trade with them. You need to work out international issues with them on Syria and Ukraine and other places. But you have a strong element in the United States that's probably a majority that want to dominate the world. The liberal interventionists and the neocons represent about 95% of the United States Congress. I know who they are. You might have one senator that has a realistic point of view of what's going on with us. And it's just, from my point of view, it's just counterproductive. I've studied politics for 50 years, more than 50 years. Okay? And I've never seen anything like it. We've had such unity against Russia. It's even greater than from the 1950s, when you had anti-Russia hysteria in the United States. The anti-Russia hysteria is overwhelming. And again, I track it very closely, and I'm very disturbed by it. Will it change? Not unless something happens.
On which side?
Both sides.
Both sides.
That you finally, you are in a downward spiral of these relations. And I think it's more on the American side, because you've got a lot of very anti-Russia politicians in the U.S. that are interested in punishing Russia for what happened in Ukraine without even looking at the facts. Now looking at the Kurd situation, they want to punish Russia again. They want to have sanctions with the Americans and the British pride themselves on due process, and yet they want to have sanctions against Russia with no due process, on a rumor. With the Novichok case, for example. Nothing is proven on that. They won't even talk to the Russians about it. The British won't. You know, they just want to, well, you're bad, we want to throw your diplomats out. This is not the way it should be. It's not the way it was 60 years ago during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Russians call it the Caribbean Crisis. Before John Kennedy had a blockade of Cuba, what did they have? They had pictures of the missiles in the United Nations Security Council. They had some proof. It's not like that now. No proof. No proof necessary. It's amazing. You know, Russians may be doing things that we don't like. That's normal.
Everybody does.
That's normal. That's normal. You know, but at least if you're going to sanction and create economic problems for U.S. companies, for Russian companies, for American citizens, have some proof, please. You know, or have a decision. OSCE, somebody saying, well, all right, the UN decided this, you know, and Russia did this, and it's pretty conclusive. All right, maybe there's a justification for it, some things. But at least have some process, due process.
Well, therefore, we all should be looking forward to the governments and nations speaking to each other, and hopefully the world will be better and safer and more economically profitable for every
We
party
should
involved.
we should have the dialogue is extremely important. The dialogues, these kind of events, these are absolutely open.
Yep.
Okay, absolutely open. I've seen you talk about, oh, you know, America, the land of freedom of speech. This is freedom of speech. People say what they think and what they believe at a forum like this. I see it all the time. So that's my...
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and your opinion and your expertise. And I hope you will enjoy
My
the rest
pleasure,
of
yes.
this